All right, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so I know we probably recorded this class probably 3 or 4 times. I know you guys love it. One, I like, yeah, I gotta get it done. But I like the aspect of it because I can evaluate my teaching, my professor can, and then also we can see how we act, how I teach, see what we learn. Okay. So I know last year we had current issues. For those of you who don't know, it's been a month. Hopefully you know what class this is. It's American government. Okay. We moved on. We talked about the philosophies of government. We talked about the systems and forms of government. Okay. Remember the three forms? Remember we had federal, unitary, and confederate. Remember that? Okay. This kind of ties into what our philosophies were. Remember the guys John Locke, Thomas Hobbes, Jean-Jacques Rousseau. Remember all those guys? This all ties into how we're going to introduce the Constitution. Okay, I gave you guys the Constitution packet to work on. We've had a bunch of crazy days. I mean, you guys enjoyed it. I did not like it. Okay, why? Because it got us way behind. However, I'm going to wrap all this up today. Okay, and we're going to move on to this. Okay, so if we look over here, our essential question basically is, what was the U.S. Constitution? What was the purpose of it? How did the U.S. Constitution form our government that we know today? Okay, and the learning target isn't orange. Okay, but it's weird. Our standards is green. You guys chose that, so I don't really OCD about that. I don't really like that. But anyways, by the end of today, I would like you to demonstrate knowledge of what the structure of the U.S. Constitution was. Later on, we'll talk about the Bill of Rights. There's 27 amendments, and we'll hopefully, by the end of today, know the top 10. Cool? All right, so you got in front of you a video question worksheet. It's a couple questions over this 4-minute video. Understand that this is going to be fast-paced. Okay, so within the first couple seconds, the first question is going to be there. So make sure you're paying attention. Okay, and I'll stop it on occasion to make sure we're on the same track. Okay, we do this. We got a participation grade of 100. I'm going to walk out here with an A for today. Okay, you cool with that? Okay. Let me hit the lights. Is that okay? We hit the lights. Mm-hmm. No falling asleep. Perfect. Lights, camera, action.
The Constitution of the United States of America by the RDE Library. The Constitution is a document written by a group of men known as the Framers in 1787, America, by the RDE.
Okay, meant to stop that. All right, so question 1. I told you, within the first couple seconds. So, what were the group of men who wrote the U.S. Constitution? What were they known as? Some of them were presidents. I saw you writing it down. Did you pick it up?
No, I just forgot.
All right, let's do it again.
RDE Library. The Constitution is a document written by a group of men known as the Framers in 1787. Yes, it is over 200 years old.
Okay, perfect. All right, these guys right here, these were known as the Framers, and I'll get more in touch with this when we go to our PowerPoint. The PowerPoint's about 11 slides long, but we're going to zoom through it. All right. Now, this was in 1787. The Framers, as many times as I taught this concept of American government, a lot of my students, and I'm not saying y'all, but would mix up the Framers with the farmers. Okay. Now, granted, there were people who were farmers and soldiers, but these are known as the Framers. Okay, and we'll get into it later as what they were. And again, this was in 1787. So like I said, it was over 200 years ago. Okay, it's 2018. Okay, could you imagine? People were alive back then. Okay.
From May to September of 1787, the Framers met in Philadelphia at Independence Hall and discussed what should be in the Constitution. The United States was a...
Philadelphia.
So, yeah, Philadelphia. Where's Philadelphia? Anybody know?
Up near New York.
All right, check it over here. Let's look behind me. All right. Philadelphia is up in the northeastern region. It's close to New York. It's in Pennsylvania. Has anyone ever been there? What's it like up there?
Cold.
It's very cold up there. Okay.
No, really, it's just semi-cold, semi-warm.
Exactly. Yes.
There's lots of old buildings over there.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. It's part of history. Now you said what, JoJo? All right. So Philadelphia, Phila.
I said Philadelphia.
Delphia. Pennsylvania. Again? Yeah. Philad. E-L-P-H-I-A. Okay, and just for time's sake, let's do Pennsylvania, just put P-N, or P-A actually. P-A is the abbreviation for Pennsylvania.
That's what I know.
Yes. Huh?
That's what the people from New York say, PA. They don't say the whole name.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and they met in Independence Hall, okay? Very historical building in the center of Philadelphia, close to Liberty Bell. That's kind of what it looks like. It's not, it is what it looks like, actually. Okay? All right, so we should have 1 and 2 done. Cool?
Brand new country at the time, and had a government that many felt was not as good as it could be. They were meeting to come up with a new way of running the country. Some of the people at this meeting, called the Constitutional Convention, are famous to us today, including James Madison,
We'll just skip over to me.
Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington.
Okay, we just knocked out
3.
2 questions, 3 and 4, in like 20 seconds, okay? So number 3 was, what was the purpose? Okay, anybody get that down? Okay, so the purpose, they were meeting to come up with a new way of forming a government, okay? When we talk about the U.S. government before, we were under control under Great Britain, okay? And for anybody who remembers, in Great Britain, you know, in England, essentially, they had a monarchy, okay? Does that sound familiar? Monarchies ruled by who? King or queen, okay? We had a constitutional monarchy, like the Queen of England, okay? Was she essentially like a ruler? No. No, she can put in her insight, but she didn't really have power over England, okay? Now, if you think about like King George or King Henry VIII, yeah, they were absolute monarchy, meaning they had all the power, okay? Yes?
Isn't that room is where they voted for all countries and states?
Close, but that's more into democracy. You're talking about direct democracy, okay? All right, and then some of the members of the National Convention, like you just saw, you had James Madison, okay? Next to that, put in quotes, the father of the Constitution. And I'll explain why he did that. Generally, he essentially developed or drafted the Constitution, what we have today. Okay. So, as again, some people who were there, James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, does anybody know what dollar bill he's on?
100.
The $100 bill. Now, here's a fun fact, or question. Was Benjamin Franklin a president?
No.
No.
Then why was he on the $100 bill?
And he essentially helped with electricity, but he was actually the only founding father that signed 4 important documents. The Treaty of Alliance with France, the Treaty of Paris, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence.
Who was on the $50 bill?
The $50 bill?
Isn't that something white?
I wish you could tell me. I'll get back to that one. Okay? Wish you could tell me that. All right. So, we should have the framers, they met to come up with a new way to form a government. Okay? And then some of the people, as she just said, was James Madison, Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington. Okay? All right, just so we can go into the PowerPoint section and transition into that whole class teacher-led activity, we're going to go ahead and play the video. I know it's going to be pretty fast. I will replay this video toward the end of class, and we can make sure we're on the same page. But this is just an introductory to what the PowerPoint is. The PowerPoint will fill in the gaps. That make sense? Okay.
Our first president. The men came from all over the country, which at the time was made up of only 13 states. The different states had different ideas of what the new government should do, and they had many debates and discussions to come up with a plan that everyone could agree with. It is said that the Constitution was born in compromise, because only by compromising could all the disagreements be resolved. Benjamin Franklin not sure if the plan was perfect, but that it was probably as perfect as it could be. After the Constitutional Convention ended, the Constitution had to be approved by the 13 states. The Constitution actually said that only 9 states had to agree to the Constitution, but everyone wanted all the states to agree. 2 states, North Carolina and Rhode Island, took a long time to decide to agree to the Constitution, but in the end, they did. When the Constitution was accepted by these first 9 states, we say that it was ratified. One of the biggest reasons a lot of people opposed the original Constitution was because it lacked a Bill of Rights. A Bill of Rights is a list of rights that belong to the people that the government is not allowed to break. Some of these rights may sound familiar: the right to free speech, the right to practice your own religion, and the right to be silent if the police accuse you of a crime. The original Constitution had no Bill of Rights. Many of the framers did not think it was necessary, but to get the Constitution to pass in some of the states, promises were made to add a Bill of Rights once the new government was up and running. When the Constitution was written, the framers knew their creation was not perfect. They knew that other people would have good ideas for the Constitution and that future generations would want to make changes. They wanted to make it possible to change the Constitution without needing to resort to revolution. They wanted to be sure that it wasn't too hard to make changes, but they also wanted to be sure that it wasn't too easy. The framers added an amendment process. An amendment to the Constitution is a change that can add to the Constitution or change an older part of it. After the new government started to meet, Congress proposed the Bill of Rights, and in 1791, the changes were accepted by enough of the states that they were added to the Constitution, and these 10 changes are called the Bill of Rights. The Constitution is the highest law in the United States. All other laws come from the Constitution in some way. The Constitution also provides the framework for the government of the United States. It created things like the presidency, the Congress, and the Supreme Court. Each state has its own constitution that is the highest law for the state, but even then, the United States Constitution is higher.
All right, and we'll touch back after, toward the end of class as far as making sure we're all on the same page. But that was just a quick introduction. Didn't want to spend too much time on that. Just wanted to show you a video to be different, okay? All right, so this right here. Yes, sir.
Can I go get water?
Yes, sir. Okay. This right here, we're going to talk about the U.S. Constitution. We're going to wrap it up. A lot of you did pretty well on your packets. Some of you didn't get to finish it as much, but this is going to tie it in, okay? And as we go on the next couple of weeks, we'll break down the Constitution in specific branches, okay? Anybody know those 3 branches by any chance? 3 branches of government?
Judicial.
Executive. Starts with an L. Legislative. Okay, perfect. All right. So, our learning target, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to demonstrate knowledge, or y'all are, of the framing and structure of the U.S. Constitution. How was it formed? Okay? So, we just talked about the Constitutional Convention, okay? Now, does anybody know who this guy is right here? Or can take a guess?
Washington.
George Washington. Who is he? He is
He
the first president, all right? Anybody know where he's from?
Georgia.
From West Virginia, isn't he?
Close. Not West, though.
Virginia.
He's a Virginia. All right, he's a former soldier, and we'll get to a little bio of him down the road. All right, so in your questions, it talked about the Constitutional Convention from May 14th to September 17th, 1787. All right, now this is also known as the 100-day debate. Okay, 100 days to go into the process of creating, ratifying, and passing the Constitution, what we know today. Okay, so it wasn't me to speak in regards to the government of the U.S. We were under England and Great Britain rule. Okay, it was under a monarchy. Okay, we wanted to be separate. Remember we talked about the 13 colonies. Okay, we were Confederate states. We wanted a Confederate government. However, do you believe that you're successful if the states run the government? Could you imagine? If we didn't have a government, if we didn't have laws, if we decided everything, it'd be chaos, guys. All right. So like I said, absolute monarchy. And what was developed in this was the Articles of Confederation. This is what we were abiding by before. Okay? This was an agreement between the 13 colonies as far as what we were going to believe in. And from that, the U.S. was able to modify the Constitution based on this. And I'll tell you why. This is another picture. This is just a picture of what it looked like roughly of the Constitutional Convention. The guy on the podium is George Washington. He essentially led the convention. All right, now what happened in that convention? So they brought up all these ideas. You know, do we keep the Articles of Confederation? This was under British rule, okay? Do we keep that? Okay, do we keep that, absolute monarchy? Or do we change our centralized government to have a stronger centralized government? Like I said, in the Confederate government, who controls the power, essentially? In a Confederate.
People.
The people or the states. Okay, so the states or the regional governments. All right, now, there was a proposed plan by James Madison. What was the nickname I gave him? The father of what? He's the father of the, what are we talking about?
Constitution.
The Constitution, all right? Now, he had a plan. He had a Virginia plan, all right? Nowadays, we have a bicameral legislature, meaning we have two houses of Congress. When we think of legislative, we're thinking Congress, okay? So, nowadays, we have what? We have a House of
Representatives.
And the House of the...
Congress. Wait.
It is Congress, but House of the Senate, okay? All right. Now, his plan was we had 13 colonies. And the way to form Congress, he thought, well, basically, I know it seems like a lot of text, but basically when you get out of this, in the Virginia plan, at the time, Virginia was the most populous state, okay? They wanted representation in the House of Representatives, that wasn't a formal name, but that's what they wanted. They wanted the states with the bigger population to have more people in the House of Representatives. Now, why would they do that? They would do that to decide more laws, okay, to have a better say, okay? And like I said, in this whole proposal, he wanted a strong central government. He wanted a federal government, meaning the government has power and it trickles down through regional and states of the people, okay? They wanted 3 branches, legislative, executive, and judicial, okay? And again, the legislative branch was Congress. Executive, we're thinking the president, and judicial, we are thinking courts, okay? All right, on the flip side, there was a New Jersey plan. All right? So we had the Virginia plan. We wanted representation based on population. Basically, bigger states had more people in Congress, okay? New Jersey plan is the flip side. So if the Virginia plan wanted the bigger states to represent more people in Congress, what do you think the New Jersey plan was? Are we talking about bigger states or are we talking about smaller states now? Smaller states, okay? We may be small, but we will stand tall, okay? Now, we had in James Madison's proposed plan, the Virginia plan, again, he's the father of the Constitution, he believed that we should have a bicameral Congress. We should have 2 houses of Congress, House of Representatives and House of Senate, okay? The New Jersey plan was just one legislative, one act of Congress, okay? We talked about the Articles of Confederation. That was a belief through British government and how to go about their monarchy, okay? Pretty much no or strong centralized government, okay? Like it says, derived for the fact of being independent. We were 13 colonies, we wanted to be independent. We tried to work with the Confederate government, that was shut down, okay? So we moved on. Now, each state had 1 vote in Congress, okay? So, we talked about the Virginia plan. It was apportioned, meaning it was divvied out by people with more people, essentially population. That represented more in Congress, okay? The New Jersey plan was opposite. They were saying the smaller states, we should be equal. There should be 1 representative or 2 representatives from each state to have a say in what the Constitution states or how governments ran. Now, between this is known as the Connecticut Compromise. This resolved both issues. They were arguing for 100 days. Could you imagine 100 days debating? Back then, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. Do you think at Independence Hall they had AC? Do you think they did? No. You saw what they were wearing. They would debate to decide whether or not they had what form of government they wanted. Okay? The Great Compromise kind of sealed the deal. And it kind of mixed both. Okay? So in the Virginia plan, Are we talking about